Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 word and to some Spanish Grand Prix race reaction. I'm on my Todd today, all by my lonesome. I won't sing, I promise. I'll stay calm. So I'm going to need you in chat today. But a good old monologue, I think somebody called it last time I did this. So that's what we'll go with. But I reckon we've got a pretty decent Grand Prix to talk about. I'm quite surprised. Obviously, every single year we come to Spain, I think everybody kind of expects something a little bit processional, something that's not particularly exciting. But I actually think as Spanish Grand Prix go, that was pretty decent. And I'd probably rate that higher than Miami, which isn't too hard to do, let's be perfectly honest. But yeah, really enjoyed that Grand Prix. Really enjoyed that one. Obviously, heartbreak for Charles Leclerc. We'll get into that a little bit later. Amazing for Max Verstappen, really. A great comeback drive in many ways. Hat-trick of victories for him now. So title has absolutely swung around. Still very early days. 6 points in it at the top. And a bit of a disappointed Sergio Perez, but a fairly happy George Russell as well. It's been a great weekend overall. I've really enjoyed how competitive it seems to be at the very sharp end of the field. So whilst I'm probably going to be accused of British bias with this line, I'm very happy to see Mercedes back up there in the mix. Although I don't think, just my observation, their progress is quite as substantial as perhaps it appears, because they were still a long way off come the end of the race. But let's get into that in just a moment. Thank you very much for I do kick on to Charles Edward Cheese here before I even started. Once again, thank you so much, mate, for your super chat. Let's have a quick read of that one. Says, what a refreshing Spanish Grand Prix. That's a great word, actually, refreshing for Spain. I for one had a unique experience viewed while driving across America from west to east. Interesting. When you press your throttle, you get F1 noises. Shout out Apple CarPlay and F1 TV app. Anyway, poor Charles Leclerc. Also, driver of the day, King Russell and Sir Hamilton, though Hamilton's whining today was ... P.S. Perez cheeks must hurt. Yeah, he wasn't very happy. Thank you as well to, was it Phil B? I believe, who dropped in a super chat. Possibly not. You're not on the screen, mate, so apologies if I missed that one. But oh, there you go. It was Phil B. Says Hamilton driver of the day. Freaking deserved it. He could have literally won. Thank you so much for your early super chats. Let's jump into the race result, though, and how it finished. This has already changed, by the way, but not anything overly significant. Max Verstappen with the win, 13 seconds clear of Sergio Perez. Second place, wingman Sergio Perez, fastest lap of the race, so at least he got that bonus point for him. George Russell in third place on the podium again, and another top 5 finish. Carlos Sainz, fourth place in the sole finishing Ferrari, had his spin, as did Verstappen. Actually, Verstappen more of a slide at turn 4, which cost him dear. A little bit of damage as well at the start. Lewis Hamilton, fifth place. Maybe if you didn't see the race, you'll go, well, that's okay. But if you saw he was after the first lap, then that's a very good comeback drive. Valtteri Bottas, again, really solid performance in sixth place. Esteban Ocon, a great recovery for him, seventh place, although only started 12th, so not too bad. Lando Norris, eighth place, some good points for him despite being ill. Fernando Alonso from the back of the grid to ninth. That Alpine, a much better race car than it was over one lap. Yuki Tsunoda in 10th place, taking that final point. Sebastian Vettel is 11th for Aston Martin, he drives for now. Come on, Sean, wake up. Daniel Ricciardo in 12th for McLaren. 13th for Gasly, provisionally, initially, whatever you want to say, but he has received a 5-second time penalty for the incident with Lance Stroll, and it's absolutely destroyed his race because that drops him from 13th place to 14th place. Oh, Pierre, it's over. Lance Stroll in 15th, Nicholas Latifi 16th, Kevin Magnussen only 17th because of that first lap incident with Hamilton. We'll probably get to that as well shortly. Alex Albon, though, 18th, did also receive a 5-second time penalty for leaving the track too many times. Track limits infringement there, but his race was, yeah, not great anyway, bless him. 4 pit stops in the end. I'll wait for the press release to come through. I'm not quite sure why, but 4 pit stops and some 42 seconds behind Kevin Magnussen. And Zhou Guanyu DNF'd with a mechanical problem. And Charles Leclerc, who was frankly cruising to victory. I don't think it's unfair to say that Charles Leclerc, obviously we don't know what was going to happen in the closing laps and whatnot, but I think it's pretty fair to say that Charles Leclerc had that one in the bag, was absolutely cruising. I think 11, 12, 13, 14 seconds up the road, something like that. And it all went wrong when his car lost power. It sounded like a turbo issue. I've not seen another replay or anything, but it did sound like a turbo issue. It was definitely kind of a whine or a wheeze from the turbo as it went pop. So kind of gutting for Leclerc. I was devastated, I'm not going to lie. I think he drove brilliantly up to that point. Obviously helped with issues for those behind, but still a very good performance from Charles Leclerc up until that problem, which, you know, it happens in Formula One. Verstappen's had 2 of them. Perez had one. it's, swings and roundabouts at the end of the day, this early stage of the season. It's what matters later on, really. But I hope that's not going to completely destroy his hopes of the championship. Very, very early days, though, of course, as I say. So plenty of time for him to bounce back, I guess, is what I'm saying. So the reaction itself, thank you very much to CRM Doodle for your super chats. Can we please stop talking about getting rid of DRS now? It is certainly still needed for overtaking. Completely agree. There was something on Twitter, I think it was, who was it that said it? Peter Windsor, I think, saying either yesterday or today it's time to get rid of DRS, but I think without DRS today, that would have been a typical Spanish Grand Prix. So thank you for your super chat, and great point as well. I completely agree. So where should we start? We've got to start at the start of the race, obviously, haven't we? Because what's the point in starting at the end? Charles Leclerc got away nicely. Max Verstappen, I would have said marginally the better start. Let me know if you disagree in chat, but I would say Verstappen just got the better start, but Leclerc managed to come across and cover him off, and those two went into turn one, first and second as they were on the grid. Carlos Sainz got a shocker. Car dropped into anti-stall, it looked like, and then kind of, you're not going to bounce back from that on the run to turn one, such a long straight, and he kind of got swallowed up. There was contact at turn one between, so Perez tagged Russell, and Sainz then tagged Perez, so that could have been a lot worse, but all of them managed to continue, and the race kind of slowly unfolded from there, and it wasn't quietening down after that point. I don't think it went quiet or anything like that. There was still some action through the field, but the front of the grid seemed to be settling down quite nicely. And then all of a sudden, Carlos Sainz in the gravel with a spin at turn 4 thanks to a gust of wind. Max Verstappen a couple of laps later, exactly the same situation, although his was a slide, as I said earlier, rather than a spin. That dropped him a few places and kind of cost him a lot of time. He ended up behind Russell. His DRS was playing up, which I'll get to in a second. That kind of looked as though it was going against Verstappen. Leclerc was cruising, and then Leclerc's mechanical issues. Verstappen came through the field. Three-stop strategy. Kind of first, I think, to blink on the three-stopper. And Sergio Perez, in the end, dutifully hopping out the way, which has caused a bit of a stir on Twitter, as I'm sure you can imagine. But I think, it is only race 6 of 22. It does seem very early to be doing that, but I'd be a massive hypocrite if I said too much on that, given that I was a Michael Schumacher super fan, and I was perfectly fine as a Michael Schumacher fan with Austria 2002. It wasn't those levels today, but it'd be a bit hypocritical for me to have a moan about team orders, but it does seem very early in the season. However, Perez still needed to make that third stop, which apparently was scheduled, and you kind of get it, don't you? With all due respect to Perez, the championship is between Verstappen and Leclerc, although Checo isn't that far off the top. So I can totally understand his frustration, but it's Formula One, it happens. So what can you say? I just... Team orders are a part of it. They annoy a lot of people. I understand why they annoy a lot of people, especially this early in the season. But ultimately, if I'm a team boss and I've got Leclerc and Sainz as drivers, I'm probably treating Sainz as the second driver. If I've got Perez and Verstappen as drivers, I'm probably treating Perez as the second driver. If I've got... Who else have we got? Let's have a look through the field. Trying to think of another example here. I don't know. Vettel and Stroll. I'm probably treating Stroll as a second driver because of the experience and the more talent, if you like, that comes from Verstappen and the raw speed, all of that business. So I get it, but it's a non-issue for me. And it may, Checo will sit down with the team. They'll talk him through it. They'll be fine with it. And he'll be ready for Monaco next week. Christian Horner pretty clear that, different strategies. Verstappen was quicker. It makes sense. Shame that Verstappen didn't hop out of Perez's way a little bit earlier to allow him a crack at Russell, because I think he would have got him. But yes, let's talk about Verstappen's race then, really. We've gone over a few bits there, kind of a little review. I don't know why I went into a review there and then started about talking about team orders, when I should have been starting with Max Verstappen. Loads of notes for him today, so I don't know where to start. I think the DRS issue is where we're going to have to go with, because it's been an intermittent problem through the whole weekend, and then we've come into the race today, and it's been opening on one straight, particularly seems to be working okay between turns 9 and 10. Then he's coming onto the start-finish straight and it's not opening where he really does need it. And that's frustrating him. He's getting angry. That's leading to him whacking the button, I think he said over team radio, about 50 times. And, engineer comes over and says, look, just press it once when you get off the curves. You don't need to hit it 50 times. And the flaps up and down. And it just looked really... I totally get why he was frustrated over the radio. He's chasing down George Russell, trying to get back on track after his slide, and then his DRS is playing up like that. And they said it in commentary, it's the basics, isn't it? DRS is a basic thing. You've got to get that right. So I hope they can sort that for Monaco. Not that DRS is going to make any difference at all in Monaco. It'll be sod all difference, if anything. So I don't think I'll be too worried for Monaco, but definitely going to need it for Baku. I think we can agree on that one. So there you go. I think frustration totally understood as far as I'm concerned for Max Verstappen, but they've got to get that solved. It's an interesting one. I can't think what it is because they pointed out, I think it was either Martin Brundle or Ted Kravitz said in the Sky commentary that in the tailwind between turn 9 and 10 it was working, but the headwind down the straight it was playing up. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it or whether it is just a mechanical problem. I'm sure Red Bull will let us know in the coming days, or maybe they won't. Maybe they'll keep that to themselves, but they need to get that sorted because that could have been a disaster today. And it would have been a disaster, I think, had Charles Leclerc not retired from that race, because he was absolutely cruising in that one. Second place today, Sergio Perez, like I say. So a Red Bull 1-2. Just looking through my notes for the two Red Bull boys. A couple of things actually on Verstappen is he went for the undercut on Russell, which worked out really, really well. Put him on the 3-stopper, like I say, first to pull the trigger. But what a lovely, like a proper wonderful scrap between Verstappen and Russell, and also Russell and Perez, especially though Verstappen and Russell, to see that opportunity. Verstappen goes for that move into turn 1 down the inside. You think it's done. Russell just keeps enough speed in to stay around the outside, keeps the position. They fight all through turn 3. I think there was a complaint on the team radio from the Verstappen's engineer that maybe Russell didn't leave enough space on the outside of 3. That was perfectly fine. That was just racing. Get over it. And then through turn 4, that carried on all the way to turn 5, and Russell managed to stay ahead, which was just absolutely brilliant. I love that. More of that. And I think whilst a lot of the overtakes today were DRS powered, we saw that move and that nice little fight, which shows that they can get a lot closer than they used to. Nobody's claiming that the dirty air situation has gone this year. I don't think anybody's claiming that, but we just saw that they could still battle a lot better than they would have done 12 months ago, for example. So I think that's a really good positive today. And also his move around the outside of, was it Bottas at turn 12? I know fresher tyres, but goodness me, that was a ballsy one, because that's very quickly. That's a fine line between a brilliant move and sticking it in the gravel and looking like a plonker. So I think that was a great move. I really enjoyed that one for Max as well. Talked about the DRS issues too. Not really anything to say other than I thoroughly enjoyed his racing today. Obviously, he had his little slide into the gravel of turn 4, but that looked like it kind of ruined his race, but didn't in the end, as it turned out. Also, really, as he was driving aggressively because of his DRS frustrations, he came through turn 8, of course, and kind of caught the sausage curb. It looked like a little bit unstabilised or destabilised the rear of the car, and nearly a very nasty accident. So I think he'll take that, Verstappen, today. A great recovery drive to take the victory. If he doesn't take a win, then goodness me. But yeah, his teammate second place, as I say, team orders, a little bit frustrated, but I think he'll be fine. The team will sit down, they'll go over it, they'll show him the strategy. Christian Horner made the very good and fair point that, and we've heard it before actually, I think when Lewis Hamilton tries to dictate strategy a little bit when he's in the car, we hear this from Toto Wolff afterwards as well, that drivers don't have all the information that the pit wall have. So giving those team orders to Perez is because the pit wall have said, look, this is the situation, Verstappen's going to be quicker, they're on a different strategy, we need to make the change, we don't want to have these two fighting too hard because the temperatures were through the roof. That's just going to cause reliability problems. We know that Verstappen's got his problems with the DRS. It makes sense, and I think he'll understand that when he sits down in the debrief and gets that one sorted. But again, lovely fight with Russell. I talked about his contact on the opening lap as well, but I think that was a maybe not. No, that'd be a bit. I think that'd be a bit over the top. But I think that was one of his best drives for Red Bull, I think, so far. I think that. I don't think it's his best. I think Abu Dhabi was superb last year from Sergio Perez, given everything that was going on. But I think that was a really good drive. And I don't know if he'd have won it today had they not done the switch. I think Verstappen was still quicker, and ultimately I think he would have got through. But I think he could have put up a proper fight. And maybe there was a win there for Checo, but it probably needed a little bit more fortune up the front. But what I would say on Perez, and I think it's a fair point, and again it goes to Skycoms that point this out. I didn't really think about this, but Perez didn't make a mistake today. Apart from that little bit of contact at turn 1, there was no mistake from Perez. He didn't slide into the gravel. Yes, it was a gust of wind, but that didn't affect him. He didn't put a wheel wrong really today, so I think I could understand his frustration, but what can you say? George Russell, third place. I'll do the podium and then I'll do the first two teams, which is Red Bull and Mercedes. Then I'll come to you guys for some comments on them, and then we'll roll on to the rest of the field. But George Russell, I think, was, Hamilton got driver of the day today. I think George Russell has got to get a mention in that conversation when we have it later. Surely Surely. He was superb today. His defensive driving. I initially wrote good defensive driving. I've then scribbled that out and put great, and then scribbled that out again and written phenomenal. It just got better and better as the race went on. I know some people don't like the later moves, but I think they were all absolutely fine. I think he was very, very, very strong today, and it's great to see him in a fight. And, you know, there is an element of luck in the sense that Leclerc DNF'd and maybe would have been fourth today, but still it was great to see him just racing today and having the pace to compete and fend off the Red Bulls and be in the mix a little bit. So he needed that, and it was nice to see that first proper battle between Verstappen and Russell. So I'm very, very happy for George today. I think he was pretty strong. Towards the end there were problems though. I think it was a water leak with the power unit, they said. I think it was Ted that was saying a water leak with the power unit. That meant they had to kind of do a lot of lifting and coasting to make sure that they could make it to the end and manage temperatures, and that in the end cost Hamilton a position to science because he managed to get through into fourth. So without that, maybe Hamilton would have been fourth today. Some might say Hamilton could have won today. I think we have the super chat that said that one as well. So Mercedes were in there today, and that's a good thing for them, but they're going to have to hope those reliability issues are Spain specific. That was a mouthful. Spain specific, maybe. Do we think? This is the heat, you know, the temperatures were insane, unseasonably hot, way too hot for me. It's about, what is it here in the UK? I'll just get a little insight into my life. It's 20 degrees here in the UK, and I'm as uncomfortable as I ever get. I cannot stand the heat. I much prefer, I'm a winter guy. I like the autumn, winter, cooler temperatures. Anyway, I wouldn't have survived Spain today. Absolutely no way. So hopefully that's just a temperature issue. They've got some pretty hot races to go to later in the year, so that's something they will absolutely need to get on top of. I've talked about his lovely little fight with Max Verstappen that kind of went on for a few corners. Again, I don't think there's anything in that one. The overheating thing, actually, back to that for a second, is a concern because a lot of that he was running in clear air, wasn't he? So it's a bit of a worry. I don't know if they've closed up a bit too much on the cooling and maybe gone a bit too to the line with that one. Maybe not expected to be quite so hot. I think the weather on Wednesday when I did the preview was about 28 degrees. So it was much hotter than that. So maybe that wasn't expected, wasn't in the strategy today, but I don't think George could have done much more today. I will say, in his interview post-race, he looked a little bit, I don't want to say disappointed. I don't know if this, let me know what you think. I don't know if this came across to you guys, but when he did his post-race one, if you saw it, he didn't seem thrilled with P3, which is a shame because I think that's a really strong drive. He was in the mix, as I say, with those top two teams, and I think that he couldn't have done an awful lot more today. Sure, he could have maybe been a bit more aggressive and stopped the Red Bulls getting through, but aside from shunting them off track, there's not a lot else he could have done. That Red Bull is, in my view anyway, the fastest package out there, and I think it's quite a way ahead of Mercedes still. It's a bit like, can you remember when Mercedes were really dominating and Red Bull was sort of the second or third fastest and Mercedes were just disappearing every year? It kind of feels a little bit like that. There's no point in him fighting that too hard. So I don't think he could have done much more. So I hope he's not disappointed. I really do, because I think he was, as I say, superb in defence. Absolutely brilliant. And again, hopefully the reliability issues are sorted. Lewis Hamilton, the only driver to start on the medium tyre today, which was quite a surprise. I thought that would be the one that everyone went for with the temperatures being so high, but he went for the mediums. We will never know is the answer to that one as to how far he would have gone, because he had contact with Kevin Magnussen at turn 4, which went down to the stewards. They said it was a racing incident. I tend to agree. I think there's a little bit of, Magnussen blamed Hamilton, saying he knew what he was doing. I think that car is understeering, not like crazy, but significantly enough to make contact with the Haas going through turn 4. I don't think Magnussen's turned in aggressively. There's not really any turning to the left towards Magnussen from Hamilton. That for me is a first lap incident, but a really bizarre one because it was a fairly hefty whack wheel to wheel, but it wasn't like a bit of front wing or a bit of bodywork had sort of cut Hamilton's tyre or anything. It was just a big hefty whack and it punctured his left front. Kevin Magnussen went into the gravel. Like I say, first lap incident, but surprised that there was so much damage done to Hamilton's car, and that put him right down to the back of the field. I think they said on his team radio it was about 50 seconds off Verstappen at the end of the first lap, and he's driven through to 5th place and was 40 odd seconds behind come the flag. So I mean, that's a pretty damn good recovery. I can completely see why he got driver of the day. I'm not sure if he's my driver of the day yet. I'll get to that in a bit, but I can see why he got it. But yeah, I'm kind of a little bit frustrated because when they said he was on the mediums at the start, I was really intrigued as to what that could do. And a couple of you have already said it, that he could have been in the win. I'm not convinced. I think the Red Bull today had the pace. Obviously, Leclerc's retirement is going to help them regardless. But I think Red Bull would have had too much pace in the end. But I think Hamilton would have been up there on the podium today had he started on those mediums. His start was pretty decent as well. It wasn't a bad start. Got in the fight with Sainz, who got a sloppy one and ended up losing out to Magnussen really in that contact. So I don't really know what else to say on that. Just a really weird one. I'm quite surprised. I'm sure there are loads of you that'll be going, well, Sean, the energy involved and all of this business, who are far more up on the technical side of things than I am. We'll probably have a great explanation for that. But just a bit of a curious one. Definitely. I thought it was race over, and so did he. I mean, he said over team radio, didn't he, that he was done. Let's bring the car in. Let's save the engine, which... Do we ever like to hear that? I don't like to hear that. I could understand if that contact happens on lap, what was it, a 66 lap race. If that happens on lap 50, I can totally understand that conversation. Let's save the laps. Let's save the engine. Let's not waste it. But to do that so early in the race, as frustrated as you are and as defeated as you may feel at the back of the field like that, safety cars can happen. Spins, you might be able to stretch your strategy out and you might be able to make a 2-stop when others make 3. There were so many options there that could have changed that. And as it turned out, he came back really, really well. But I don't like that from any driver. I don't like that defeatist attitude. It's Lance Stroll. If you've been following the channel for a while, you'll remember this, but I was quite angry at Lance Stroll in Monaco a few years ago. He was driving for Williams and he was sort of like, oh, what's the point in racing? And I was like, right, get out of that car and give it to someone who appreciates it, you little swine. I wasn't quite like that today with Hamilton, but I was very much like, oh, don't be like that, Lewis. Get in there, get the tyres changed. Well, he had got the tyres changed. Get your foot down, get your head down, see what happens. And if you get to the halfway point and you're still a long way off and you're still down the back, then maybe have the conversation again. But it seemed really early to be having that conversation. We've heard it before, but we hear it from drivers all the time. Or there are drivers saying it all the time. We might not hear it over team radio. If you go through F1 TV stuff, you'll hear it from drivers towards the back. Do we stop and save the engine, things like that. But yeah, very early to be doing that one. And good job he didn't. If you're a Lewis Hamilton fan, it's a very good job he didn't, because he came through really, really well to 5th place. So there you go. I'm going to have a swig of my drink and then I'll see what you guys are saying. And then I'll carry on through the order. I'm going to go through the order today because it's just an easier way to do it when I'm on my own. It's very difficult to have a conversation with myself, although I do it because I'm weird. Is the super chat not working for everybody else, says Ruby? It seems to be working for others. I don't know if it's a problem with the stream, but if you've got a question, Ruby, feel free to pop it in the chat. I'll try and keep an eye out for your name. But the stream, yeah, it should be working okay. So not sure on that one. Thank you to AC. George should be driver of the day. Thank you, member for 17 months. I think George was superb today, as I say. Had another super chat a moment ago as well, or a little bit earlier in the stream. Thank you to Erminator31. Says, here's an idea. Seeing how Max only was able to use his DRS every second lap, maybe we could introduce a rule where you can use DRS wherever you want, but only like limited times a race. For example, race distance 5 times. It would break down DRS trains and stuff. I did a video a couple of weeks ago or a few weeks ago now on DRS and why we should still be keeping hold of it. Absolutely. I think I said in that one it'd be an idea to maybe have a limited number of maybe still have your 2 zones, or maybe add a 3rd zone to some tracks that haven't got one and say, look, you can use this DRS at any point you want in any of those zones. However, you've only got, as Erminator there saying, 5 times in a race or 10 times, and then you can use it in attack and defense. It's a little bit more strategical than just a faster car coming through the field. There's a bit of strategy in there, like Russell today using his battery to defend from Verstappen. Imagine if he'd had DRS to be able to do that as well. It would have been even more incredible. So I like that idea, but then I just enter into the why don't we just have a push to pass button. It's kind of my opinion on that one. I've read that one, so thank you very much, Sarah and Doodle, once again, and to Charles as well for your super chat a little bit earlier. Clancy says only 50 uses per race. I some tracks that'd be one a lap. I think it would have to. I see what you say, but it would have to come down to how many laps there are. For example, Monaco, 78 laps, you'd get away with that, but a 52 lap race or whatever, that would be a little bit crazy. Although DRS on the opening lap could be brilliant fun, definitely. Charles says, well, Lewis doesn't have a good attitude. He's I'm winning orbit stupid type. But you've got to understand Charles's frustration today with that situation. I don't like him saying let's give up already, but you're down the back. You've had a good weekend to that point. Really, qualifying wasn't amazing, but the car's feeling better. The car looks better. It's in the mix. Your teammates having a good race, and then suddenly you're punted down the back like that. You definitely can see why he was like that one. Fourth deconstruction says Verstappen couldn't with Russ, only Perez could yet today. It was BS from Red Bull, so a few people actually have been keeping an eye on chat saying they think they should be free to race at this stage of the season. It does seem very early, doesn't it? Random's Boss Man says racing incident for sure between Hamilton and Magnussen, wasn't it? Yeah, I was going to say Verstappen. Let's not go back 12 months. Hamilton... No, Hamilton and Magnussen was what I was going to say. Ferrari is the fastest package, says Jan, which is, it's close, isn't it? But I think maybe this weekend Ferrari had the faster package, but I think on the balance of what we've seen so far, I'd still lean towards Red Bull. But I'm not saying Red Bull for a second quicker or half a second quicker or Ferrari are. It's much closer than that one, definitely. Brad saying a lot of Max haters around. It's same with every stream, mate. The opposite driver. Whoever wins. If Hamilton wins, we get a lot of Hamilton haters. If Verstappen wins, we get a lot of Verstappen haters. If Leclerc wins, we get a lot of Leclerc haters. I think there's only 3 in the world. I don't know how you could hate Charlotte. I don't hate any driver, quite frankly, but there you go. McLaren F1 racer Sean Golly, I'm really drunk. My liver says well done to George Russell 3rd. Steady on, mate. I've not had a drink yet. I'll be having a cider after this one. I think that the Merc driver duo is probably the best. That could probably change the constructors if they work together, but I think they are quite far behind in the World Drivers' Championship. Thank you very much to Lyric. And one more. Jonty's there, says you could have asked if you're on your own, regardless of what happens next week. Well, I was going to ask you, Jonty, but I know you're doing Monaco next week. Wink, wink. In a very unique way, which we've not done before, so I didn't want to do this one with you as well. Not I don't want you here, just I don't want to impose on another Sunday. You have a life. I don't at all, but you do. And a couple more comments then. G's Mask says Bottas did pretty good so far. We'll get to him very, very shortly. And random Bossman, a bit surprised at the Leclerc haters thing. There are definitely. And one more. What have we got? They should have let Checo win, says Biggie Els. I think they could have let that race a little bit more. But again, team boss, you've got to do the right thing by the team, haven't you? It's no good just thinking, Checo's not going to like this. You don't want those temperatures through the roof and fighting hard and all of that business. I don't know how the football's going, by the way. I don't want to know. I assume Man United are losing because we always do, and I don't want to know about the title battle at all. Anyway, who do we get? We've done Red Bull, we've done Mercedes. As I always say, by the way, if I've missed anything significant, it's not a review. It's just a bit of a rambly reaction. So, I'm bound to miss something, absolutely. So we'll get to Ferrari then. What do you say? I mean, as I said at the start, Charles Leclerc absolutely cruising. I mean, that was in the bag. I don't think anybody, again, as I said right at the start, you can never be sure. You can never be 100% sure because I'm trying to think of a variable, but you never know what's going to happen. Does that gust of wind catch Charles Leclerc out and he ends up in the wall? Does... I don't know. You know what I'm getting at. You never know what's going to happen in a race. A safety car and suddenly things can flip around very, very quickly. But assuming it unfolded as it did, with Charles Leclerc up front, he would have absolutely cruised to that one. He was untouchable. And I was all ready for this reaction before he'd retired. And I think we're only a few laps in, really, to be sat here saying, well, Charles Leclerc pitted lap 22, extended the stint perfectly, brilliant driving, superb, untouchable driver of the day, fantastic. Fully expecting maybe not a grand slam, but a pretty solid performance there from him. Probably one of his better ones of the season, but it all just kind of went wrong. I don't know what you guys think if you've seen the replays since, but I definitely I'm sure it was a turbo wheeze. It's like a little really high-pitched whine, and then it just kind of cut out, and I think it was a turbo issue, but Ferrari will confirm that. They did confirm it was a power unit problem during the race, but I've not got anything else to say on Leclerc. I'm not gonna jump into the old, oh my God, it's over for him, he's got no chance, blah, 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 blah. We are 6 races into the season. He's about 4 points behind, I think, or something like that, of Max Verstappen. I'll just have a double check now. 6 points behind, sorry. I mean, it can change like that. It really can. So I'm not overly concerned for his season. Ferrari might be a little bit worried. Quite a way behind in the constructors now. 21 points again. Obviously 43, 44 if you get... Is it 43? Yeah, it's about 43 points for the win for a 1-2. So again, that can swing very quickly in a weekend. But do you know what Ferrari need? They need Carlos Sainz to... perhaps controversially, get out of his head a little bit. I still feel like Carlos Sainz is in his head. And today's incident, forget today's incident. He hit turn 4. He got a massive gust of wind. It threw him into a spin. That kind of really screwed things up for me. He had the contact at turn 1 as well. But I'm not going to have a go at him for that spin at turn 4 because Verstappen did the same. Others could have done it as well. It was just an unfortunate thing. It was just very unlucky that he happened to be at that corner as the gust of wind hit. But he just doesn't seem totally happy with himself and his driving. All the time they're interviewing him and he's sort of like has a good race or has a really good qualifying, and then he's sort of, but I could have done this, or this could have been better, or I need to get closer to Charles. He just needs to focus on doing what I absolutely, and I'm sure many of you do know he can do brilliantly, and that is drive. He can drive so well, can Carlos Sainz. I think he's a lot more rated now than he was maybe a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago when he was kind of between teams a little bit. I think he's a fantastic driver, and I think that if he gets out of his head a little bit, just focuses on getting the basics right, driving how we know he can, I think he can be a force today. Because when Leclerc's power unit fails, and I said this about Perez last year, I said it about Bottas when Mercedes and Hamilton were dominating and losing out to Red Bull in some races. When Leclerc's power unit fails, Sainz needs to be there to help to pick up the pieces. And fourth place today, yes, it's a nice haul of points, but it's a Red Bull 1-2. He needed to be up on that podium and challenging. And I know that the gust of wind caught him out. You could say it was a mistake. It puts him into the gravel, compromises his race. But still, if it was Perez, I'd be criticising him. If it was Bottas last year, I'd have been criticising him. He's got to be up there to support his teammate and to pick up the pieces when it does fall apart, because it will fall apart. Of course it will. Charles Leclerc isn't going to rock up to every race comfortable, no mistakes, no mechanical problems, and cruise to the title. We saw in Imola, for example. These things are going to happen. It's a 22 race season, and only a 22 race season this year, record equaling, not a record breaking. So it'd be crazy to think that it's going to be a formality. So he's got to get himself up there. But I think, do you get what I mean? I'm not trying to be horrible at him. I just feel like he's thinking too much. It sounds really stupid. Can you ever think too much? But yeah, that's kind of how I feel with Carlos at the moment, and I hope that he can get his season on track. I think if you're Ferrari, you're probably starting to head towards a 1-2 situation for the rest of this season. Red Bull have clearly already made that decision. So I think Ferrari will probably be doing it very, very soon. It does feel very early, but it's not been the season so far from Sainz I was expecting. I thought he'd really kick on with his contract and after such a strong showing last year. But there you go, still. It happens. I still think the ability's there. I absolutely still think the talent is there. I absolutely still think they've got a hell of a driver, and it's one of the best on the grid, absolutely. So there you go. Zephyr Ryan says Carlos needs to get Ultra Instinct. Yeah. Maybe drive a bit more instinctively rather than overthinking it. Yeah. I think that's a great point. Just forget it. Just instinctive driving, please, Carlos. I get right behind Sainz. I was right about his move to Ferrari. I know I keep saying it, but there you go. I'll sit here all day talking about Carlos Sainz if I'm not careful. Should we get to Valtteri Bottas? Peace. I know we've talked about Leclerc, haven't we? Retiring, which is a shame. I think the FIA stewards are very robust and fair in this race. Says McLaren F1 race. I think they were all weekend. I'm going to get to Norris in a bit because I've got something I want to say about it. But yeah, I tend to agree. I think they've been pretty... good on this one, on this front, in my opinion. Please do drop a like, by the way. 1,200 watching, which is lovely for a solo stream. So thank you so much. Good to have you with us. If you are new, please do hit subscribe and please do drop a like as well. I forgot to say earlier, again, we need to get to 500 likes if we can for Charles Edward Cheese. They're not for me. If you want to drop a like for me, thank you so much. But please do drop a like for Charles Edward Cheese. $500 contribution. We want to try and get to 500 likes. So please do. That would be massively appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe as well. Lots to come, of course. Next week, it's Monaco weekend. Woo! So we got the preview on Thursday and the race reaction next Saturday. I'm not sure what else is happening that weekend yet. I might be having my arse kicked and dumped on a chair and told to get on with something with somebody. But anyway, I don't want to give it away. I don't want to say it. I really don't want to say it. But anyway, Valtteri Bottas, P6. What do you want me to say? What do you want me to say? What a season. I mean, he went to Alfa Romeo and we all sort of went, oh, that's quite a step down. It's not good for Valtteri. He's going to be in that midfield. He's going to struggle. And he is in the midfield. He is in that fight in the midfield. However, he's generally at the moment not all that far off the car he was driving last year, which is so impressive. So I think he's been fantastic. Didn't see a lot of him. Saw a few nice little moves. Made a move around the outside of Mick Schumacher, obviously DRS assisted into turn one. That was for P6 early on. It was a nice little move. I think there's a picture actually cropping up of it later in this little slideshow I've got going. So hopefully you'll see that there. But it was a nice little move from him. Drove really well. Didn't make the mistakes that he made in Miami, which was really frustrating. Tagging the wall, of course, at that final corner. He kept it nice and clean today. Good consistent pace from what I could see on the timing screens. Always seemed to be in and amongst the action with those that he was racing. But actually, ultimately, come the end of the race, pretty comfortable. 5 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton and 15 seconds clear of Esteban Ocon, which is pretty damn comfortable, I think. I said it in the reaction for Miami. He's blown me away this season, but I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised because this is what I fully expected him to do, dropping into a midfield team, dominate the team, lead it. Give him a car, he'll perform. He's quick. We know Bottas is quick. Bad strategy. It's in my notes, don't worry. People saying in chat, not great on the strategy side of things. I don't think there was any major incident there for Bottas. Obviously overtaken by Verstappen around the outside of turn 12, but his tyres were not in a great place by then. I think, was it Bottas over the... Might not have been Bottas, actually. Somebody over the radio said that this stint was wrong. It might be Bottas. But still, P6, some really solid points. 8 points, in fact. Really impressed with him. Really impressed with him at the moment. Not so much for Zhou. His race wasn't horrific up until a point with Zhou. He was another one that was kind of going along quite nice. He wasn't quite performing on the level that but it was Bottas. Thank you so much, guys, in chat. Not quite on the level of Bottas today, but I think he was okay. He wasn't great. He just wasn't terrible. And then obviously a mechanical issue kind of destroyed his race. Not much to say on Zhou. Not many notes. I mean, on a more general point for his season so far and the way things have gone for him, I mean, he's been pretty well battered. I think it's currently a whitewash on the qualifying battle, which again isn't a great surprise. Not a great surprise. And I don't think he's one of those, I said it earlier, he's not been as bad as some people thought he would be, but I wouldn't exactly sit here and say he's been amazing. But give him a little bit longer. I always say it for rookies. Get a good third of the season out of the way, maybe with the new era, maybe say half a season, and then we'll judge him there a little bit more. But yeah, anything you want me to say on Bottas or Alfa before I roll on? I always get... I can't remember his name in the comments. He'll probably be after this stream as well. Always pops in to say, oh, you never talk about Alfa Romeo. And it's like, it's really difficult to talk about Alfa Romeo because they're not a team we see an awful lot of in a Grand Prix. It's a little, I'll tell you, in fact, I'll tell you, going from my notes right now while I let you guys let me know if I missed anything. Williams, Aston, Alpha Tauri, McLaren today actually as well, and Alfa Romeo. I don't ever recall seeing an awful lot of them in this race or in other races as well. So they're a difficult one. It's not that I dislike Alfa. It's not that I dislike Bottas. It's just, you know, if there's nothing for me to go off, there's nothing for me to go off. Yeah, Zhou had a mechanical retirement. It was a mechanical retirement. Free says you can't expect a rookie that is not a super talent to be on par with an excellent driver. Only thing Bottas lacks is defense and offense, but otherwise Bottas will be top tier. Yeah, I know about the retirement, guys. I've got that one. I did mention. Don't know what it was. Could be power unit. Mattia Bonotto was said, were they related at all? With them both being, Leclerc's and Zhou's, with them both being Ferrari power units. He says doesn't think so, but they need to get it back to Maranello to check it out. So that's Everett actually says there on Zhou, he's gotten worse throughout the season. I think that's a fair point in that he started really well, got that point in Bahrain, surprised a few people, looked like he was onto something, not a world beater, but doing okay. And then certainly the last few weeks, he's tailed off a little bit. So I think that's a fair point. Absolutely. So we will... just look at the chat, see if there's anything, if you're wondering. No, so we'll roll on from Alpha. Absolutely. I've seen it. Let's talk about... Where's my order? Where's it gone? Reload, please. Refresh. Esteban Ocon. What a start to the season Esteban Ocon has had, by the way. A lot of people thought Alonso, second season back, he'd school him. He'd absolutely school him. He hasn't at all. He hasn't. Ocon has had such a strong start to the season, and I don't like saying this on Spanish Grand Prix weekend, and I know I've got quite a few Fernando Alonso fans that follow the channel, so apologies in advance for this one, but I think out of the two drivers, so far this year, he's been the better of the two. And but what I would say is if you go back to last year, Ocon also had a very strong start, and yes, he won in Hungary, but Alonso definitely came back later in the season. So I think Alonso, once he gets to grips with the car a little bit more, or has a little bit of luck, obviously Australia, what could have been there for Fernando, for example, power unit change. He qualified 17th and then took a power unit change and dropped to the back of the grid. I mean, that's already into the penalties. After 6 races is concerning for Alpine, but I think Ocon's been really, really good, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for what he's been doing. Some really nice moves, but I think overall, probably my point for Alpine, not so much on the driver front. I will get to some of Alonso's bits in a moment, but really, for me, there was a moment in qualifying yesterday when Ocon said over the radio something along the lines of, when he was told about their pace, he said, yes, but there's a reason for that. We're leaving lap time on the table. They'd obviously set that car up for the race, because today they were so much stronger in the race versus qualifying. And to end up 7th and 9th, Alonso from the back of the grid, Ocon from 12th place, both of them doing a fair bit of overtaking as well. I think that's really solid from Alpine. They've got to be happy with that turnaround. Absolutely. Alonso... What we get here? Lovely. That was it. Lovely battle with Vettel for a few corners. Eventually got up the inside of turn 1, but that was a nice little fight. Gave Martin Brundle the opportunity to give his usual, 6 world championships between them line, which he loves to do. I don't know why. You just know as soon as you see Alonso and Vettel fighting on track that Martin Brundle is going to say at some point 6 world championships between them. But there you go. That's Martin Brundle, his lines. Why not? So nice little fight there. A lot of respect shown, as always. He did have a slow pit stop on his right front. I think his stop was about 6+ seconds. It was just over 6 seconds, or just under 7, depending on which end of the 6 it was at, of course. Maybe... he's 12.7 behind Norris in the end, so even with a quicker stop, that's not going to work out for him for anything more. So I think a good recovery today from Alpine, given where they were. And I think a lot of people, Hamilton's been mentioned for driver of the day. He got driver of the day. Russell's been mentioned. Verstappen will probably get mentioned. Perez will as well. Bottas will. I hope there'll be a few in chat later when you do driver of the day who at least give a nod to Fernando Alonso, because that is back of the grid to 9th. So I think that's a really solid performance. Thank you, Philpot. So Sean, do you know Vettel and Alonso have 6 world championships between them? I'm not sure what's happening with Fernando. Longer term into next season, some rumours that he's got links to Aston Martin was the weirdest rumour I've read. I don't know why you'd go from Alpine to Aston Martin unless he really does think that they're the best project to go for. Maybe having a look at the potential Audi buyout there, if there is an Audi buyout. I don't know. Maybe got an eye on that one, but I think he'll be staying at Alpine. If he wants to stay in Formula One, I don't see why he'd... Unless somebody retires from somewhere else I don't think Alonso will be calling it a day at the end of this season, or leaving teams at the end of this season. But still, I've got nothing else on Alpine other than I think they did a fantastic job today turning that one around. Lando Norris, 8th place. Poorly Lando Norris, not very well. Had to go for checks after the race, didn't do interviews, had to go for checks with the doctor. Apparently he's okay, he's recovering, just really not very well. Will not go into detail. Even Ted hinted at it and wouldn't go into any more detail than he's just not very well. I'll let your imagination do the work there. He looked horrendous, didn't he? I'm not a doctor. I'd never pretend to be a doctor, but he looked horrendous. So to come through to 8th place today, in that heat, in those conditions, they think it's tonsillitis according to KTB. So thank you very much, Katie. 7.8 off Ocon at the end, 12 seconds clear of Alonso. I think if you'd have offered him finishing the race, he'd have probably taken that this morning. But to do it with, feeling unwell and under 8th place, I think is a really solid drive. Ricciardo, I've got nothing else on. Yeah, I've got nothing on Norris, so apologies. Again, like I said, there's a few teams here I've got very little for, and I'm not going to just ramble on and make something up like, oh, did you see that move by Lando Norris on that Badger at turn 3? Whew, what a move. I can if you want. There you go. You've got it. He overtook a Badger. Daniel Ricciardo, though, 12th place. I don't know what's going on with Danny Rick. He's been pretty comprehensively beaten by Lando Norris in qualifying, and I think in the races as well. I mean, where is he in the championship? 11 points for him, 39 for Lando Norris. I just don't know what's going on with Danny Rick. And again, I didn't see much of him. I know they had a moment between, I think Norris overtook Ricciardo at one point, but it was a very quiet race for both drivers. I'm not sure how far. So yeah, Ricciardo was 13 seconds behind Vettel and at one point took the road from Gasly. So yeah, bit of a weird one for McLaren. I feel bad not saying much on them because I'm sure there was more to it. Apparently, yes, he has been diagnosed with tonsillitis. That's an official one. So thank you very much. What do you think of the failed upgrades for McLaren? They had like 10 updates. That's a good point from Jesmask as well, actually, isn't it? Because we did have big updates for everybody this weekend, and McLaren didn't exactly knock it out of the park, did they? When you look at some other teams, Mercedes turnaround and all that business, but McLaren kind of way off, or appear to have. Would we say they've fallen away? That's what I'm kind of getting at here. I kind of feel, perhaps I'm wrong, but behind Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, Alfa, and in the mix with Alpine is kind of where they were for me pre-Spain. So I'm not convinced they've fallen away, but they've definitely not taken a leap forward. So if other teams around them have bought updates like Aston Martin, which I'm sure we'll talk about shortly, and they're wonderfully unique updates, and McLaren haven't fallen back through the field, then perhaps their updates could be seen as some sort of a success in the sense that they've not gone forward, but they've also not dropped away. They're kind of where they were. Does that make sense? If that doesn't make sense, I can only apologise. What I'm saying is to say they're a failure might be harsh because they've not fallen through the field, but they've not made a leap forward. They are, I would say, about where they were anyway. I'm possibly way off with that one. But yeah, I've got literally the only thing I've got in my notes is that Lando Norris wasn't very well. So it was a quiet one. And the overtake, of course, Norris on Ricciardo. I don't know whether that was a team order. I don't know if that was, but maybe there's something in that one. So apologies, McLaren fans. I've got much. If you complaints to both the race director for not showing us anything, or the TV director, and also complaints to Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo for being too far clear of everybody else, too far behind everybody else. Nothing else on McLaren. So hopefully, I hope that we get to, not really Monaco, is it? But I hope we get to Baku, maybe some nice updates come in and they move forward a little bit and we see them back in there. Because, it is Fantasyland. I know it's Fantasyland, but if you follow this channel long enough, you know that I live in Fantasyland sometimes and I enjoy being there. But just imagine Red Bull, Ferrari up the front fighting for the title. Mercedes, not quite there for the title, but they're in the mix at some races to pick up a podium, maybe take a surprise win. Then throw McLaren in that mix as well. That would be so much fun. Not that the start of this season hasn't been fun, but that would be so much fun. So that's what I'm going with. Okay, let's just hope McLaren can make the step forward, and I'm sure they'll get it right. I'd be surprised if they take a massive drop off. The McLaren app said that Norris was let through, so team orders. Thank you very much to Falling Vega. Thank you very much for that one. So that was a team orders thing. I figured it might have been. It looks a little bit too easy. We'll get to some of the drone shots in a bit. I will talk about that one. McLaren just don't have the straight line speed at the moment compared to Ferrari and to the power units. Thank you very much, Warren M. Good to see you, mate. Thank you for that one. So, yeah, I think we'll see. We'll see where they end up. But where did they get to? Yuki Tsunoda, P10 for Alpha Tauri. Again, next to no notes in here. Few little nice overtakes from Yuki through the race. Past Mick Schumacher on lap 57, which I think was picked up by TV cameras, but it may not feel like a significant moment, but it did get him nicely into the points as well for P10. So a pretty good a good moment there for Yuki. I can't remember how many stops he'd made. I think he was a 3-stopper, wasn't he, was Yuki? Yeah, so 3 stops for him. In fact, actually in the top 10, the only 2-stopper was Valtteri Bottas. So, oh, there you go. There's something for Bottas. Made a 2-stop work. Well done, lad. Well done. Somehow, despite his frustrations over team radio. Yeah, so I think a really important move on Mick Schumacher there for Yuki. I know Mick's tyres were going off, but it was for a point. And I think he's a driver, actually, Tsunoda, who's really come on this season. I really, really do. I think last year, a lot of people thought he was poor. A lot of people thought maybe it was too soon for him. And perhaps those people were right. Maybe that first season, it was a lot for him. But since his performance, particularly in Abu Dhabi, to take that 4th place, he's really come on quite nicely. And this season, he's been a bit of a match for Pierre Gasly, which if you'd asked me at the start of the season about that one, I would probably have laughed in your face and said not a chance. And I'm just going to go through some stats here. I've got them up, just opening the file now. I've got my nice little spreadsheet. So in qualifying, last year it was pretty comprehensively Pierre Gasly. In sessions where both drivers have set lap times, that's how I do it because it's the fairest comparison, it's only 3-2 to Pierre Gasly. And in the races this season, when we come to those ones, obviously excluding today because I've not updated this one for today, in the races they've both finished, it's actually 1-1. Obviously, you can include the DNSs and DNFs, but I tend to do the race they've both finished as a fairer comparison. So Pierre Gasly was 9th in Australia, Tsunoda was 15th, Imola 7th and 12th. And then, of course, today, Yuki finished ahead of him. So it's actually 2-1 Yuki. So he's putting up a much better fight of it this year against a driver who was so good last year. A lot of people put Gasly up there as one of the drivers of the season. So for Yuki to come into this season and be performing like this, I think massive credit to him and a much better from him. And look, I said it all last year. He's a bloody quick guy. We saw it in junior formula. He is absolutely fantastic in terms of raw speed. So maybe it's not a surprise, but he just needed to clear his head. A bit like I said about sites earlier, drive a bit more instinctively. Don't be quite so aggressive. Don't try and iron out these mistakes, and that's what he's doing. So I think Yuki, I nodded. Give him a nod. I like saying the word nod. Pierre Gasly, beaten by his teammate. I think, did Yuki out-qualify him yesterday as well? I did just have the spreadsheet up and I've just closed it like an absolute numpty, but I'm sure Tsunoda did. I might be wrong. But anyway, in the race, Tsunoda outraced him, but Gasly had a bit of a quiet one as well. He was involved in some nice little battles. Thank you very much to Ankit, who says yes he did, so thank you for that one. So nice little battle between Gasly and a few others, but one really to talk about, the big moment for him in the race was contact at turn 1 with Lance Stroll. So Stroll goes around the outside, Gasly looks to kind of understeer a little bit into him, catches the rear right of Stroll's Aston Martin. The Aston spins round, and Gasly got a 5-second penalty for that. As I said at the start when I ran through the order, didn't exactly destroy his race. 2.4 seconds clear of Schumacher, so that will have dropped him down to 14th, but he was still nowhere near points or anything like that. So, yeah, not great from Gasly. He's had a weird season, hasn't he? I thought he was gonna kick on, was Gasly this year. Perez, obviously I know there's preliminary talks going on between Red Bull and Perez at the moment about a contract extension. I understand that, but I do kind of... I feel like Gasly could have kicked on this season and made a claim for that seat. At the moment, if I were Red Bull, and I hate saying this because I absolutely love Pierre Gasly, I think he absolutely deserves to have another crack at a top team. A bit like Perez, ironically. think he deserves a crack at another top team. I think Gasly absolutely does. But if I were Helmut Marko, Christian Horner, whoever right now, I'd be signing Perez up for another year. Long season. That can all change. And you know, form is temporary, class is permanent, and all of that business. But yeah, I think keep Perez for now. But I think Gasly will kick on. I think he'll be fine. He'll be fine. But maybe some frustration that he's not in a decent car. Foss Driver says Gasly's car's had a lot of problems. Gasly's had problems this year. I know he has. He had his DNF, was it in Bahrain as well? I think he missed a session. So it's not been a perfect start from him, but it's also not been a perfect start from the team on his side either. So that's part of F1 though. You know, he's not going to do that constantly, is he? What he did last season. There's going to be ups and downs, but he'll be there. He'll be there. Aston, yeah, let's do Aston then. Sebastian Vettel. I'll come to you for comments after this one because I'm intrigued to hear what you've got to say. Sebastian Vettel in P11, Lance Stroll in P15, both knocked out in Q1 yesterday. I've already talked about the incident with Gasly and Stroll. It was a penalty for Gasly. I tend to agree with that one. Stroll didn't do anything wrong at all. Vettel was involved in a nice little scrap with Alonso as well and a few overtakes through the field, so it was good to see him fighting. Both of them doing particularly Vettel doing a really good job to get up to 11th. Lance Stroll, you know, it's gaining positions, but still not amazing from him. But, you know, it's still, like I say, gaining positions. But 11th for Sebastian Vettel today. But I think really the thing to talk about with Aston Martin, surely across the whole weekend, is the updates. I mean that is it. I have just checked the football score and I can't stop smiling. And I'm not even a Man City fan. So apologies. I will not turn this to a football stream. I will not do it. I promise. But, oh yeah, spoiler alert. Sorry. Shit. Apologies. Watch match of the day tonight. It'll all be on there. Anyway, yeah, back to the updates for Aston Martin. Apologies on that one. I don't know where that came from. Yeah, so they look a bit like the Red Bull, I think is the general consensus. That's my technical analysis. They look very much like the Red Bull. It's caused a bit of a stir. There's a few question marks over whether or not the FIA investigated that thoroughly. Red Bull's Helmut Marko says that he has proof, evidence that some information has exchanged hands or ended up at Aston Martin that shouldn't be there. Very big allegation to be making, and I hope he has got the evidence because that could get very nasty because we know how Lawrence Stroll likes to drop in front of a camera and make a big statement. So expect that one in the coming weeks. A lot of claims and counterclaims at the moment is probably the way I would put it, and something to definitely keep an eye on over the coming weeks because this isn't going to go away. This will be just like the one we had with Racing Point and Renault in that it'll end up being at some point somebody will lodge an appeal. I imagine that down at Red Bull things have gone a little bit quieter given that both Astons got knocked out of Q1 and their result today, which we're all saying was pretty good for Vettel, was 11th and 15th for Stroll. So it does go to show that you can't just copy another car. It's not as simple as that in Formula One, which I used to think as a kid, like, well, why don't you just build a faster car? It's not that easy. It's not that easy, and that's been proven. Red Bull, superb package. Same package on an Aston Martin, or parts of that same package, not quite so good. So sorry if that's an obvious statement, but I just wanted to make that point. It might go quiet, but I think this will rumble on for a little while. And, you know, if there has been any information exchanging hands, then this will end up in courts. It'll end up with fines. There'll be championship disqualification. I'm not thinking 2007 levels of Spygate because in Spygate information actually had exchanged hands and it was between people that were still at the team. So it's not the same as is it Dan Fellows who left and then took the information in his head with him. It's not the same as that. That was a completely different situation, but it could get very, very nasty. It could get very, very messy. I have no issue with. And it's not up to me, is it? But I have no issue with a former engineer who's seen a car be designed, go over to another team and say, hey, I've got this idea. As long as no information's gone, as long as there's no paperwork or whatever, or design drawings, then I don't have an issue with that one. That's part of experience. You learn things. It's their expertise. But at the same time, I can't get on board with Aston Martin's story. I can't quite understand it. I'm not going to sit here and accuse Aston of anything, but I do find it, a coincidence to say, we designed this car in the middle of last year or whatever. We just kept it in our locker. And then we saw Red Bull with a similar thing and they did really, really well. So we decided to put it on a car. That for me, it may well be a coincidence, but if that's a coincidence, that is one of the biggest coincidences of all time in Formula One history. That would be one hell of a coincidence. Oh yeah, they are almost identical in every single way, but it's just a coincidence. Not totally sure. I don't know. I don't really have the dates in front of me for when Fellows joined or when the Red Bull staff joined Aston Martin. They may have been too late for that one, but it does seem odd to me. If they had a package like that, why was that not on the car earlier in the season? You know, why did they go with the design? Maybe they just thought their design was the better one they went with, but it clearly wasn't. So I'm not accusing them of anything. I'm not trying to preempt anything that might happen in the future, but all I'm saying is that if that is a coincidence, that's going to go down in history, isn't it? April time, was it, for Fellows? I thought it was quite late. It was too late, wasn't he, to design those parts and get them fitted on a car. I thought it was too late for that one, but I'm not quite sure on whoever else. There are quite a few members of Red Bull went over to Aston Martin for quite a lot of money, didn't they? So I don't know. It's also, I will also say at the same time, copying other cars, I don't have an issue with that as a fan, because it's happened in Formula One for years. I thought of an example the other day when I was in the shower, an image none of you needed while you're having your dinner. But I came up with a theory. You think back to, was it 98? I think it was 98 when a team turned up with the X-Wings. I don't know if it was Tyrrell or somebody like that turned up with the X-Wings on the side pod. And then over the course of the next few races, Jordan had them, Sauber had them, Ferrari had them. It's what happens in F1. People see something they like. The double diffuser with Brawn. You know, had we not had the big rule change, and it hadn't been banned, people would have inevitably started to copy DAS. You see an innovation, you like it, you think it'll work, you copy it. That's absolutely fine, but it has to be done above board, and I hope that Aston Martin have. They say they have. They say nothing is weird. Helmut Marko disagrees. Helmut Marko would disagree, because that's all Helmut Marko does is disagree. So we shall see in the coming weeks. But I'd be interested to know what you think. Let me know. I'm very relieved as well, RC. That's all I'm saying. Wink. You know what I mean. I was very nervous at one point. Yeah, let's see what you guys are saying. So just destroy the evidence, no problem, says Pedro. Love it. Get the paper shredder out. This is more like Spygate, says Clansome. Thank you very much, mate. Marco versus Stroll. Our battle will be legendary, says Ankit. He'll be in front of a camera very, very soon, will Lawrence Stroll, giving a statement. Definitely. Raoul says it might have taken them time to understand that concept, so it's only now they understand how it is supposed to work. People work because people work on different parts. They don't know the whole picture. Thank you very much. That's a great comment. Very good point. Might just take it. It's just the fact that it's so similar to look at. Do you know what I mean? That you sort of go, that seems like too much of a coincidence. But at the same time, there used to be a theory that if you painted every single Formula One car the same colour, a casual fan wouldn't be able to tell the difference, and we didn't accuse them of copying each other then. So it could just be a massive coincidence. It could be, and it could just be, as Raoul said there, it's taken Aston a little bit of time to get used to it and work it all out. But, yeah. Wasn't it Olivier, Prost and Benetton in the 90s, says EM, on the X-Wings? I'm not sure. I thought it was like a Tyrrell. It might have been 1997. I seem to recall Mika Salo having the X-Wings on at Monaco in 97, 98 time, somewhere around there. Might have been 98. I don't know. But yeah, I'll have a look at that afterwards, because I mean, I love F1 history. It really annoys me I don't do more F1 history content, actually, because it's the thing. I'm not the technical guy, but I am okay with my F1 history, and I love going back and watching classic races, so I need to do more on that one. But anyway, exactly, Harley, like the T-Wing a few years ago. The shark fin as well was something that got copied. There's loads. It happens all the time in Formula One, so we'll leave it there on Aston Martin. We absolutely will. Who else we got? Haas, I believe we're at now. So is it just Haas and Williams left? Have I rambled on that long that I didn't even realise we were nearly done on the field? Christ alive. Thank you to Ruby for your super chat. Says Lewis is the GOAT. Russell was not happy as he was told overall on pace he was slower than Lewis in dirtier air and his tyres had more degradation. Thank you very much, Ruby. Just double check if we've got any more super chats that I've missed. No, so that's okay. We're all up to date on those ones. And once again, please do drop a like. Don't forget to subscribe as well. We are on 293. We're getting towards 500. Let's get there for Charles. 1,200 watching. Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. One more. If they hire a sidepod person, they do know which floor is supposed to go with it. For example, you have to get the whole package. Thank you, Raoul. You're making some good points, right? Do you know, I'll go back and watch this stream just for your comments and I can write them down. Then I'll sound like a bloody genius next weekend. You watch. And then you can call me out on it. Why not? Haas today, frustrating. Really good in qualifying yesterday. Both of them. I think Mick Schumacher promoted into... That's what I was going to do. I'll do it in a minute. I'll do it for Norris in a minute. So if you're still listening later on and when this goes out as a video or a VOD, I think is what we have to call it, then... I will get back to McLaren in just a second on Lando Norris's qualifying yesterday, but promoted into Q3 again after Norris's lap time was deleted. I think first time in his career, Mick Schumacher into Q3. First time since Brazil 2019, I believe it was the stat that both Haas boys were into Q3. So fantastic for them. Mick Schumacher knocking on the fringes of points for most of the race. I think he may have been down in P13, 14 at times, but he was always kind of in that fight for a point or two. And then strategy-wise, it all kind of didn't work out for him, did it? Where was he? Did he do a two-stopper, didn't he? So two-stopper, tyres going off towards the end, just started to fall through the field. I think with, I said about Tsunoda passing on lap 57, I think Mick Schumacher was 9th on about lap 56 or something like that. One, and then ended up going behind Alonso and then Tsunoda, and then just fell through the field, ended up 14th place, promoted to 13th after Gasly's penalty. That's what I was after, not DNF, penalty. So, again, points for Mick, just about eluding him. And I'm kind of gutted because I made that prediction once again. I'm not going to predict him next week for points because then maybe he'll score them in Monaco, which would be quite a Schumacher scoring points in Monaco in F1. Oh, that'd be emotional, wouldn't it? Yeah, so I think overall for the weekend for Mick, really, really good. Didn't cover himself in glory in Miami late on, as we know, with the incident with Sebastian Vettel, but just I really want him to get points. I really, really do. I think that would be, in drivers' careers, there's moments, isn't there, where they drive us up the front of the field, get that first win, and then they kick on from there, or that first podium, or that first point, and it just gives them that confidence to kick on. I think Mick could do with that right now, so he was kind of in the mix for points. It's just a shame that the two-stopper was a tough one today. Bottas finished 6th, but even he said over the radio he was struggling. Sebastian Vettel made it work in 11th. Mick Schumacher fell through the field, didn't really make it work. K-Mag tried the two-stopper on the hard because of his first lap incidents, didn't really do much from there, so... yeah, not really much to say on Mick Schumacher other than, come on, lad, let's get a point. I think he's got a lot of stick over the last few races, Mick, and I think a lot of that's been fair because he was very good last year, but as I said last week, who was he up against? Have to bear that in mind. Kevin Magnussen comes in, much more experienced, knows the team. Yes, he's had a year out, but he's still super quick, and he's kind of in control of that team at the moment. Not a great surprise in many ways, but I think Mick's still got the speed. I think he's still got the ability. I think the potential's still there. But it's how long Haas are going to stick with him. So I hope that he can take a lot of confidence from this weekend in the way he performed. No, the strategy didn't work, but he performed well throughout the weekend. And I think it just needs... if he can just get that point. I think he gets that point, he kicks on from there and things feel a little bit better. Definitely. But the two-stopper just didn't work today. It needed to be 3, which... I must admit, isn't it lovely to say that? The two-stopper didn't work. It should have been 3. Oh, 3-stop races. It's not quite 2012 levels of 722 stops per driver per race. Was it China? I'm sure it was China 2012 or 2013, somewhere around there, where it was just pit stop after pit stop after pit stop. It was crazy, but it's nice to see 3 stops. It mixes things up. The hard only used by Kevin Magnussen today, so I don't know why they bother taking it, why they can't drop a compound, although that said... yeah, would have definitely used the hard then because it would have been what we had as a medium today, but who knows what's going on Pirelli's head. Kevin Magnussen, we talked about the contact at turn 4. I'm not going to go over that one again. All I'm going to reiterate for anyone just tuning in is I was just quite surprised by the amount of damage to Hamilton on that one. But he went into the gravel K-Mag and rejoined, and that was kind of it for him. I'd be interested to read actually the press release. I'll just have a quick look on Twitter actually and see if they've released their press release because I'd be interested to know if they've got any damage. I don't necessarily... suspect they did. He went straight into the gravel. I mean, it's quite bumpy, isn't it? But so K-Mag said I was on the inside and got hit in turn 4, had a puncture straight away, and that was basically the end of the race when the tyres were sort of new. The car was good. On to the next one. So yeah, so he's saying as well that he got a puncture. So just surprised by the level of damage. You're used to seeing it with a front wing end fence, if you like, and things like that. But I'm just quite surprised by by that one. I've got a PayPal as well. Thank you very much to Ermin for your PayPal. I don't know if I've already read that one out, but thank you so much for sending that through PayPal. Massively appreciated. I don't think there's a message. If there was, nope, there's nothing here, but thank you very much. Always appreciated, Ermin. Thank you for that one. Sorry if I missed it sooner. So, yeah, not much to say really on K-Mag. He kind of summed it up nicely there, wasn't it? Contacted turn 4, game over, race done. What else can he say? But I think Haas are all right. I think it's quite telling that they bought no updates this weekend, and race aside, qualifying were right in the mix for top 10. And you know, where would Magnussen have been without that contact? If they'd gone with a 3-stop for Mick, maybe a little bit sooner, could that have changed his race? Yeah. Well, I think they're looking all right, Haas. I think, and they've still got a big update to come. A lot of teams bought the quote unquote B spec this weekend, so it will be absolutely interesting. When would they bring it? I think he said 4 or 5 races. I think Steiner said so. We might not see anything from Haas until Silverstone, possibly Austria, somewhere around there. So I wonder. Maybe they'll wait till after the summer break. Williams were there. In my notes, it's a question mark. Literally, all I have is a question mark. So thank you very much, notes. Latifi, out-qualified by Albon yesterday, I believe. That's about it for him. But I tell you what he will be happy with. He beat Albon today. France, apparently, says KMS Boss for the Haas updates. Thank you very much. I'm going to write that in my notes. France updates for Haas. I don't know what the accent was about, but there you go. Thank you very much. I will jot that down so I know for Haas weekend to keep an eye out for that one. So yeah, for France weekend, sorry. So yeah, Latifi, I think he'll be happy to outrace Albon today because Albon was kind of schooling him, but Albon pitted 4 times in that Grand Prix. I'm going to go to his press release because this is what I'm going to do. Oh, they've not put the press release out yet, have they, Williams? No. It is very early for Williams to be. They're usually first, actually, having said that. So I'll just go and have a double check what was going on. But I think I will say actually just on De Vries as well, who I think did a very good showing in FP1, outpaced Nicholas Latifi. I saw some stuff, some people saying that actually it was the medium tyre for Latifi and the soft for Albon, for De Vries. It wasn't. I checked it, I rechecked it, and I chased it up. It was the soft tyre for both drivers. So, all right, it was only a 10th, but he also lost time in that final sector as well, did De Vries. So I think to beat Latifi in that first session, first time on a race weekend, first time in that Williams, I think he's got to be pretty damn proud of that one. I really, really do. So well done to Nick De Vries, and I think most of you probably know, and I'm going to jinx him now. He's the teammate of the guy I usually say this about in Formula E, but I do rate De Vries quite highly. I've just ended his career, but you know, I do rate him quite highly, and I'd quite like to see him have a shot in the possibly Latifi seat. Maybe if Albon moves on, I don't know. I'm just trying to find a debrief from Williams. I haven't got anything, so I don't know why Albon pitted 4 times, unless it was just because he was struggling with his tyres. So apologies, I've got nothing from Williams on that one and nothing in my notes. But yeah, like I said, I think Latifi will be happy to have beaten Albon today, but Albon was 42 seconds behind Kevin Magnussen come the end of that race, so it's been a shocker. I've got nothing else. If there's anything significant that you know, then please do say in chat, and we'll get onto it in Q&A. I'm going to write it down now. I will do the Norris qualifying thing in a moment. But driver of the day, Lewis Hamilton won the official driver of the day title today. Let me know in the chat one surname, and I'll read a load out as well who your driver of the day was. And because I'm on my own, and this is where I love it, because I'm on my own, I get free pick. I could pick anybody from here, so I'm gonna go with Lance Stroll. I'm not really. I think driver of the day for me, it's a really difficult one. It's a very, very difficult one because I think Magnussen, Verstappen's recovery today was very, very good. Was a great way to bounce back in the championship, to get control of the championship. I think he deserves a mention. I think Sergio Perez was superb today. I think George Russell was superb today. Hamilton's recovery was brilliant. Bottas was decent despite a bad strategy. Both the Alpine boys coming through and getting a double points finish. It's a very tough one. It is a very, very tough one. But I am going to go with... Oh, I don't know. I like that from the racing guy. I'm going to go with a British Merc driver. I think, do you know what? Actually, I don't do this enough, and that's part of the reason why I'm going to give him it, but also because I think he was very, very good today and possibly deserved a crack at that win. I'm going to go with Sergio Perez. A lot of people going, oh, for God's sake, give it to Verstappen. He won the race, Sean. How can you not give the race winner driver of the day? He was clearly the best driver of the day. But as good as Verstappen was, Perez, whether it was a gust of wind or not, Perez didn't get caught out at turn 4. Perez had a faultless race today, aside from a tiny bit of contact on that first lap with George Russell. He drove well, very, very well. Overtook Russell nicely as well. I think if he'd been allowed a crack at Russell when Verstappen was struggling with DRS, I think Perez would have got that done even quicker. Could have been right in the race win. Maybe without team orders, he could have been fighting for the win. I still think Verstappen would have just about had too much, but I don't think he put a foot wrong, and it's really tough as well not to pick Russell. They're the two I'm kind of fighting between. I'd love to give it to the race winner because it would just be easy. It'd be my way out of this. It'd be my way out of this one. Absolutely. Zeron says I have no credibility because I went with Perez. I'm hoping that's a joke. I really hope that's a joke because that is hilarious because, you know, I could say that about a lot of comments I see in chat from other creators, but, you know, people are entitled to their opinion. I got to say Perez. I got Perez or Russell, but I'd say Perez. I mean, like I say, the race winner's the easy one for me. It's the way out. I could just go Verstappen because he won. That's easy every week. I don't have to bother driver of the day. And I'm going to say it. Nod to Fernando Alonso. Back of the grid to P9. Do you know, I might give it to Alonso. I'm going to give it to Fernando Perezl. And that's covered me on 3 people there. Definitely. Drugovic, yeah, from Fill in the Blanks. Really, double. Absolute double. Fantastic. From him this weekend in F2. I'm just saying that while I scroll up here. So, where's the first one? Who got in there first? Dell. Dell says Hamilton. Adam says Hamilton. KMS Boss says Maldonado. There's always one. Isaac says Perez. Ruby says Hamilton. I'm not surprised, Ruby, from your super chat earlier. I know you're a big Lewis Hamilton fan, so that's fair enough. But he was very, very good today. He's got to be in that mix, definitely. I reckon you could pick 5 minimum who deserve that today. All of them drove better than I could in Formula One cars. They probably all do. But anyway, Admiral James says Russell. Musso says Russell. Wilbur says Perez. Lewis as well says Azel. What was Lewis Hamilton's pace? Have a look at that in a bit. Who else have we got? Wackerson says Perez. Murray says Alonso. Craven says Russell, or Cravone says Russell. Wright says Perez or Bottas. A slip says Hamilton. David says Alonso. Daniel's gone with Drugovic. Why not? Or Dragovic, however you want to say it. Pedro says Perez. Katie says Ocon. I think that's a fair nod. Michael absolutely says Alonso. Completely agree. Deserves a nod in there. Wilbur says Perez. Ruby says Hamilton again. Vlad says, I think Alonso was driver of the day. He gained 11 places. This is what I'm struggling with, Vlad. I'm very tempted to change my answer to Alonso because I think he was brilliant. But I think, like I said, do you know, I was going to try and mix 5 names together and then we'll do it definitely. Lewis or George for Clansome. British Merc guy, as I said, from that racing guy. Very, very good answer. Phil B says Hamilton. Perez was flawless, says Pedro. Completely agree. Dave says Russell. Matt says Max de God. Max Verstappen fans. Perez says Wackerson. I think I've read that one. Raul says Bottas or Russell. Phil B obviously says Lewis. Thank you for 2 super chats actually to let me know that you've got Hamilton there. Thank you very much, mate. Rijay says Hulkenberg, and Halo says Kimmy. There's always one, but this week there's 3. Why not? A perv just for you says Russell. Russell, Hamilton, Alonso, Leclerc, Checo, Norris says fill in the blanks. If Leclerc wins that race as dominantly as he looked like he was going to, I think a lot of people would have been saying Leclerc, but it didn't work out, unfortunately. Chazza says Hamilton's title is gone. Sad face. You never know. It's a long season. You never know. I try to find somebody who we've not, like a serious one. Purple Zebra says Pastor Maldonado. Thank you very much. It's basically a decade since he did that incredible drive to victory in 2012. So he deserves a wink. does Pastor Maldonado. Not that I'm flirting with him. Raul says Bottas. Nando Loris says De Weberis. Thank you very much. Let's take 3 more then. See if anyone's saying. So Denick says Alonso as well. I've read yours, Raul. Prophet says Lewis. And the Mac says Bottas. And a thumbs up as well to Daniel Philpott for mentioning Stoffel Van Dorn. So, if you have any questions, I'll stick with Perez for now, but I'm not quite so sure all of a sudden. People making very good points as I'm reading through the names there in the chat. And you're sort of like, that's a fair one. That's a fair one. So if you've got any questions, pop them in the chat form. I'm going to have a quick swig of drink. I've not done that for ages. Like literally nearly an hour. Or any comments you want me to read, anything I've missed that you really want me to talk about. I won't be going quite so long today because I'm on my own, but I mean, I say that. I'm an F1 fan and I could talk for hours. You may have noticed. So one thing I'm going to do, though, while you guys get some questions in, please do drop a like. 333 likes. That's nice and satisfying. But we need 170-ish more to get that to 500. So please do drop a like. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe as well if you are new. Preview for Monaco is out on Thursday, 4 p.m. BST. And of course, we'll be live shortly after the race, probably around 5 p.m. again. I just like saying live at 5. So probably about 5 p.m. again next Sunday for the Monaco Grand Prix. I will give you an early heads up as well. I wasn't going to say anything, but I will. Baku reaction. I will be solo again for that one. It will be a shorter one because very, very soon after the Grand Prix, Baku Sunday, I'm off to pick up my puppy. Smiles at chat. Yes, I will share some photos on Twitter when we get him home. Don't worry, but he's only 6 weeks old at the minute, so needs a few more weeks with his mum, and then we bring him home on the 12th. So there you go. Anyway, yeah, I wanted to talk about Lando Norris's lap time deletion in qualifying yesterday. A lot of people were annoyed, very annoyed that he got his lap time deleted. I believe there were some outlets out there saying, asking the question, was that harsh on Lando Norris because the gravel trap's on the outside? I totally understand it. And under Michael Massey, sorry to bring him up, but under Michael Massey, that would have been allowed to slide because his argument would have been, well, if they go any further, they're in the gravel. And I get that. And it does feel harsh. However, at the first race of the season, the race directors put the event notes out and made it clear from day one in this season that the white line defined the edge of the track, and any driver who strayed over any white line with all 4 wheels in practice, qualifying, whatever, they get their lap time deleted, and in the race, if they did it enough times, they get a black and white flag, and eventually they'd end up with a penalty. So when people say it's unfair, I actually completely disagree because it was in the regulations from day one, and it does. I know McLaren were arguing, it's a centimetre this and it's a centimetre that. It doesn't matter if it's the width of a pube. If he is all 4 wheels over the white line, it is lap time deletion, and if you do it enough in a race, it is a penalty. We cannot sit here as fans week in, week out for years going, they just need to simplify track limits. We don't need these grey areas. Make them easy to understand. The track should be defined as the white line, and then when a really popular driver happens to get a lap time deleted, I'll have a massive meltdown about it and say, maybe we need to change the rule. No. We've wanted this for years, a clear rule. They are enforcing it. I'm not going to say consistently because there have been some moments. There have been some moments where I've gone, that looks a little bit over the line, but whatever. But they're trying to enforce it consistently. They're being firm on it. The white line is the edge of the track. You go over it, you will lose your lap time. You will be penalised in the race. Albon today, penalty for going over the white line too often. Nobody complaining. Yuki Tsunoda yesterday, lap time deleted. Nobody complains. Lando Norris, we all love him. He is a walking meme in many ways, in the nicest way possible. And he is a very friendly guy, and he is very good with his fans. And I totally understand why people love him. However, the rules are the rules on that one, I'm afraid. I am not going to have a go at the race directors for enforcing a rule that I have been screaming at since, in fact, almost literally day one on this channel. Almost literally day one. Go back to 2017 and the first video that really took off on this channel and made me think, hang on a minute, this could be my job. Crazy. Was the analysing track limits FIA inconsistencies at COTA in 2017, and my argument there was, yes, it was a penalty for Verstappen, but why wasn't it a penalty for this, and this? And I highlighted all these examples of drivers who were over the other side of the white line or cutting corners or whatever, and no penalties were handed out. And that was my argument, and I've been banging that drum for 5 years. It'll be massively hypocritical for me to now sit here and go, yeah, but it was only a centimetre. Doesn't matter. People can have their opinion. People will disagree. That's absolutely fine. But the rules are the rules. And, you know, I think there are some... I read something interesting yesterday on Reddit. A quote from Andrew Benson that apparently F1, the sport, as in FOM, so if you don't know how that works, Liberty Media are the commercial rights holder of Formula One. They work under Formula One management, so FOM, and the FIA are the... I'm not going to tell you what FIA stands for because I will trash that one. They are the governing body. They make the rules, basically. And there's some talk that F1 aren't happy with the FIA and are looking at ways, it's only rumour, and it's come from Andrew Benson, so take it with around about 32 tons of salt. There is a rumour doing the rounds that F1 are looking at ways to sideline the FIA a little bit because they're not happy that the FIA are focusing on things like the underwear and the jewellery ban, and they're not putting barriers in place in Miami, for example, when drivers said you need a Tech Pro barrier there, and then 24 hours after Carlos Sainz has a very nasty crash there, Ocon has the same crash, and the FIA still do nothing. There's a feeling that they're focusing on the wrong things. I think there's a very much an air at the FIA at the moment of... dare I say, backlash from the winter, where they're sort of like, well, you want us to enforce the rules, so guess what? But I also know that Eduardo Freitas, I think it's not Niels Wittich, is it? It's Eduardo Freitas is a real stickler for the rules. Is what I understand from what people have told about other series that he's been race director in. So not a great surprise, but it does feel like there's a little bit of a bitchy war going on behind the scenes between the FIA and F1 and teams and things, but I've been watching. I've been watching sport 30 years. It won't be the first time the F1 and FIA have fallen out and have been talk of breakaways, and it certainly won't be the bloody last. So I would not really pay too much attention to it. It'll be a negotiating tactic if that's true. F1 want the sprint races signed off. The FIA don't want to. That's ultimately what it's going to boil down to. But on track limits, we're screaming for consistency. When the FIA are going to be consistent with it, you can't then come down on them and boo-hoo. My favourite driver suffered. It's part of racing, I'm afraid. I think it is only a centimetre, but like I say, where'd you stop? Where'd you stop? That's the problem, isn't it? You know, if it was only a centimetre, and then next week it's, but it was only a centimetre more than Norris's and his wasn't deleted. Oh, but it's only a centimetre more than Verstappen's and his wasn't deleted. Oh, it's only 4 centimetres more. And all of a sudden, you're back where we were. And it used to be ridiculous. You know, like there'd be corners. I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head, but there'd be corners like, you know, no racetrack in particular, there'd be a corner like turn 1 where they say if you exceed track limits, it's a penalty, or you get your lap time deleted. But then like turn 6 somewhere else, drivers would be twice as wide and it wouldn't be considered track limits infringement. It was crazy. So I get why people are annoyed because it was so marginal and it would have put them into Q3. But ultimately, we've been screaming for that to be consistent for years. They're finally going to police it properly. We've got to let them do it. I'm not saying people can't moan. If your favourite driver is on the wrong side of the rules and they get penalised, of course you're going to be pissed off. Of course you are. It's perfectly natural. I was very bitter about Michael Schumacher being thrown out of the 97 championship as a kid. Looking back now, it's amazing he only got thrown out of that championship, to be honest. A lot of people might argue he should have been thrown out of 1994, but, you know, there you go. That's the Schumacher fan, so I get it. And I think Alonso as well was miffed. Somebody just saying in chat there, where are you? You've gone away. So there you go. Warren saying Alonso just ignoring the chicane. That was something as well from Miami that upset people, and that got a penalty, and he wasn't happy. But there you go. Look, we're F1 fans. Anybody in chat or anybody listening who says I never moan, you're lying. I know you do. We all do it. We all love this sport. We all love watching these cars. Everyone will have, or most people will have a favourite team or a favourite driver or whatever. Of course you're going to moan when your favourite team or driver doesn't come out on top, or when your favourite team or driver is on the wrong side of the rules. It's only natural. It's, you know, there's going to be a lot of people unhappy with the result in the football today. There's going to be a lot of people ecstatic with it. It's natural, but there you go. Let's move on from that one, because a few of you I saw, I'm not going to shout names out unless I can find them super quickly. A few of you asking about my opinion on the drone. It needs a gimbal. or whatever the equivalent would be for for a drone. It needs some stability. It definitely needs some stability. It's a little bit. So Michael asked about it as well. Dave the Fish asking just on the drone cam, just a couple there as well. So yeah, I mean, I think I like drones. If you've been watching the channel, if you use B-roll as well for F1 in your line of work, you'll know they've got some fantastic drone shot. My favourite ones that we've ever had in B-roll was the Alpha Tauris at Imola last year. Yuki Tsunoda and there's a motorbike revs up outside. Yuki Tsunoda and Pierre Gasly around Imola. That drone footage is incredible. It's only a shakedown. It's only them doing a filming day, but it looks fantastic. So it can be done really well, but it looked a little bit like someone gave them a drone from about 7 years ago with a 720p camera on it and went to some guy who's never flown a drone before, have a go. It wasn't great. No offense to the guy that was doing it. Yeah, I think it's something that I'd like to see, but I think at the moment, stick with the helicopter. It's much more stable. It gives. I mean, there was a great shot as a direct comparison of. I think it was it Verstappen and Russell, or was it Russell and Perez? It was a Red Bull and a Mercedes coming through that same sector where the drone had been. It was a direct overhead top-down shot, and that looked fantastic, whereas the drone was a little bit shaky all over the place. It's the same, think back to the helmet cam. We all love, or most of us love the helmet cam. When that was first done, it wasn't good. It was shaky. It was not stable. It made you feel a bit sick watching it. They always start somewhere, F1, and they manage to balance it out. So I don't mind them adding some drone footage in, but just not all the time, and try and get it stabilised and sorting out. It's all right. It doesn't bother me. It's not something I'm going to get really wound up about. I know we like to from time to time. Ruby says she never complains. All right, I believe you, Ruby. You are the only one who never moans, I promise. Thank you very much for your super chat there. Just check. Sorry. Someone just sharing something with me. So yeah, just sharing some proof because I didn't believe you. Just sharing some information that Lando Norris has been diagnosed with tonsillitis. And actually, very quickly, just before we get back to your questions, we've got the Williams press release through, so I can tell you a little bit about Williams. Tough day out there, says Alex Albon. So he picked up damage to the floor after his first stop, and that heavily impacted the car's performance. A lot of tyre degradation, and I really struggled with, especially in a couple of corners. It's unfortunate and don't really stand a chance today. Nicholas TV said, we struggled on the track today with overall pace, but it was also tough on tyre degradation and physically due to the heat. Yeah. Enjoy chasing down Kevin Magnussen at the end, especially as the Haas is a car that is much faster than us on paper. So yeah, that confirms that then. So it was damage for Alex Albon as to why he was struggling. So that's frustrating for him. Absolutely. And also been pointed out in Discord to me there that the tyre graphics have gone this year from the AWS thing, so that's good. McLaren says helicopters give mad guys jobs. Drones are cheap. Thumbs up. Oh yeah, don't outsource jobs to machines. Sean, you should fly the drone for F1. Oh my god. Mate, I can't drive a car. I can drive a car, but not well. My car's got a few dents in it, and it's not the first car I've got through that's had a few bumps. So, yeah, definitely. And I promise for those asking, I will put some puppy pictures up on Twitter, and I'll share them in Discord as well for anybody over there who is a patron. We'll share them in there as well. When I get him home. We'll wait till I've got him home. I want to make sure he's okay first. I don't want to go sharing pictures and everyone's like, oh, he's so lovely, and then, yeah. Anyway, I don't have a favourite driver or team. I don't want the same driver winning all the time, says, is it Heine? Heine Sten? Thank you very much for your comment. Do you know, it's an interesting one. I don't necessarily have a favourite driver or team because I was so invested in Michael Schumacher, and I don't really want to do that again. But I do find myself getting behind certain drivers, but that does change weekend after weekend. I have a driver that I get in my head that I want to do well that weekend, and I kind of end up getting right behind them. So I guess that you could call me a glory supporter. I mean, I never pick the bloody winner. If you've watched my previews, you'll know I never picked the winner. So I mean, I was wrong again on this one. So there you go. Thoughts on Ricciardo not doing media afterwards? That's from Ross. I wasn't aware that he'd not done media afterwards, so I can see if there's any thoughts on it. I mean, I understand Norris not doing it because he's not very well. But I'm surprised at Ricciardo. Maybe just disappointed with the result. Where was he in the end? I mean, P12, 13 seconds off Vettel, only just up the road from Gasly. It wasn't exactly a brilliant race for him, was it, today? And I think he's definitely one of those drivers that is struggling quite a bit at the moment in terms of form. So I'm not really sure what to say on Daniel Ricciardo. I'm not going to get into this debate that I see all the time about how he's trash. And it's like, well, is he? Is he really? He's a pretty damn good driver, is Daniel Ricciardo. It's just not working for him at McLaren at the moment. So I'm trying to find where their press releases. They've moved it. They've changed their bloody website. Do you know, these teams and their websites, stop changing them. It's very complicated. I'm just trying to find their statements and see if anybody said anything. So that's Daniel Ricciardo. I think we're still fighting a little bit in some areas, so I'm just trying to perfect it. So he's not really got a huge amount to say. But yeah, they've said mixed job in Spain is the one they've done for their race report, which I think is fair enough. Yeah, I'm not sure. All I can think of frustration with Daniel Ricciardo. It's always a shame when drivers don't come out and give an opinion or an interview after a race. But I can also understand if, you know, your teammate is 8th, despite being ill, and you finish 12th. It's not going to be a good feeling. And the last thing you want to do is get in front of the press and have to explain why it's not really worked out. So it's a shame. It's a shame that he doesn't come out and talk. But I must admit, though, at the same time, if I was a driver, the last thing I'd want to do is talk to the media. Especially Ted Kravitz there with his red hair. So, yeah, I'm actually quite surprised at that, Ross. He usually comes out, doesn't he, and at least has some part of a smile on his face just to say something. So I'm quite surprised at that one. But it is what it is. I don't know what to say on that one, to be fair. Post-race, Lewis, we never give up, says Robert. Yeah. Why Perez let Max pass, says Sleepy Town. Obviously team order, as you'll know. But essentially, as Christian Horner was saying post-race, they're on different strategies. Max's tyres were newer, so he was quicker. They didn't want the two drivers fighting because it was super hot in Spain this weekend. So they didn't want them fighting because temperatures were already high for everybody. They didn't want to risk something failing on the car with temperatures. They didn't want to risk contact, so they just decided to pull rank and swap the two drivers over. Which, again, if you look at it from all the information that a team has and all the data they've got and their reasoning behind it, you sort of go, yeah, that makes sense. But the pessimist in me, if you like, says that was done because Max Verstappen is driver number 1 and Checo is driver number 2. And I suspect driver Sergio Perez is going to do pretty much as he's told at the moment, because if preliminary conversations have started with the contract negotiations, the last thing you want to do is annoy your team. And he will want to stay at Red Bull. I see no reason why Perez would want to leave Red Bull. Even if he is a second driver, it's still the best driver he's ever had, and he's in a car that is capable of winning races and picking up regular podiums, and that's where Perez, in my opinion, absolutely should be. It's hard to work out as well. As I said earlier in the stream, I don't know if Perez would have won today. I don't know if Verstappen would have still had the pace even without the team orders, but I think he'd have been closer than that. Absolutely. So, and Sleepy Town responds to that, says, yeah, Perez knew Bottas, sad. I don't like new Bottas. Again, as I said earlier, if I'm Red Bull, I'm everything behind Verstappen. If I'm Ferrari, I'm everything behind Leclerc. It's natural to have a number 1, number 2. Last year, for example, if I'm Mercedes, I'm everything behind Hamilton. Maybe that will change for them this year now with George doing such a great job. And I think, by the way, just on Hamilton, I think Hamilton, when that car is in the position he's happy with, I think he will be right up there with George consistently. And that's shown sort of today with the fact that he had that first lap incident right down the back of the field and comes through to 5th place. So it's good to see Mercedes up there. But actually, yeah, I was going to say that earlier, wasn't I, on Mercedes? Just a lot of people saying they've made this massive leap forward. And they've made a leap forward in the sense, this is how I read it anyway, they've made a leap forward in the sense that they've solved their porpoising, which is quite amazing when you consider where they were a couple of weeks ago with the porpoising, and the driver's been thrown around like crazy, like they were sat on top of a washing machine or a tumble dryer. Whereas now there's nothing, next to nothing. So they've solved that, which is great. But when you actually look at the times, they're still a long way off. And I thought that during the race, but then Mattia Binotto kind of confirmed that in his interview with Sky afterwards, saying that in qualifying they were sort of 6-7 tenths off, and then in the race, yes, they were involved, but they were still about 6 or 7 tenths of a second a lap slower. So there's been a step forward by Mercedes in the sense that they've solved their porpoising. Ferrari have bought a big update. Red Bull have bought some updates, and they haven't gone backwards. So kind of like McLaren, they're no worse off in terms of lap time, but they're not really all that much better off, if that makes sense. Whereas they've solved the porpoising, and that's the key. If they've solved that porpoising, they will then be able to get on top of, they will find their pace, because that will, in theory, follow. Because if you've got a problem like porpoising, that has to be the priority. Now the focus can be on finding that pace and unlocking the pace in that car. Much better weekend for them. I think they will bounce back this season. I would be amazed if they don't win a race this season. And I think there's a lot more optimism there now, but I think take a step back and look at it as a whole and you'd sort of go, they were better, but there's still a lot still to find. So they're not where they want to be. They're not where a lot of people would argue they should be, but they're definitely in the mix now, and that's kind of exciting, but they're a long way off Red Bull and Ferrari, in my view. Definitely. Merck got further ahead of the midfield, that is for sure. Do you know, Freeze, I've just spent 5 minutes saying that, and all they needed was that line from you. That's basically it. Merck have got further away from the midfield. Right, that's the end of the stream. No, let's end it there, definitely. Well said, Freeze. Thank you very much. Can someone tell me around which minute the Red Bull team order was discussed? Good. Do you know, I was supposed to be writing this down. Sorry, Can, I can't. If anyone's got that for Can, then let them know, but we'll go back. I know I discussed it right at the start, so probably about 5 minutes in, I discussed it for a bit and then discussed it a little bit later as well, and then I discussed it a bit later as well, so I kind of a few times came back to it, so there you go. Ian says Bottas can't defend for his life. Richie, thank you, Rich. You got it, Richie. Thank you. Says they'll bounce back. Thank you. At least someone got it. I was trying to be clever and it didn't really work out. Porpoising is something they did not expect, so understanding the problem and turning it on and off is big. They know how their car works, which is big, which is... that's, again, Raoul, you've done it in a sentence and it takes me 5 minutes to do it, so thank you so much for wrapping that up very, very nicely. Have we got any more super chats for me to read before we do a couple more questions and then we'll call it a day? Anything you want to know? Any questions you've got? We'll answer a couple now and we'll wrap up in about 5 minutes. So about an hour, and we'll call it a day. We'll call it a day from there. How much of budget did Merck use fixing the porpoising? No idea on that one, but it's I'd like to know. I'll have a look afterwards and see if I can find something. Maybe mention it on Sunday next week. We'll do that one stream definitely. Race even between Ferrari and Red Bull. It's close, isn't it? I'm enjoying it. Very much enjoying it. McLaren F1 race says Binotto has Horner by his bits. Feta 2022. I'm not quite sure. Merck will bounce back. Excited for post-summer races, says Sleepy Town. Actually, that's a good point. Post-summer races, if you didn't know, the Russian Grand Prix has not been replaced, will not be replaced. We've just got the just 22 races this season. But really frustratingly, we've got Belgium, Netherlands, Italy back to back to back, a triple header. Then we've got 2 weekends with nothing, and then we've got another double header with Singapore, and I think it's Japan, which is, I know it's easier said than done when I say what I'm going to say, but it's a shame they couldn't find a way to rejig things in there somewhere so we could get rid of that triple header. And not have 2 full weekends. But the problem is if you push, for example, Monza back a week, you're then going to have a triple header the other side of it, which is more complicated from a logistical point of view. So it's just a little bit, as an F1, I'm just thinking as a racing, I'm not thinking about team personnel because I'm selfish in this next comment. I'm not thinking about anybody else but myself. Just as a racing fan, it's kind of frustrating. We're getting 3 weeks summer break with no action, 3 weeks with no action, and then 3 on the bounce, and then nothing for 2. It's just a bit weird, a bit stop-start in some ways, but it's just me being selfish. A 2-week break might be very, very good for the teams. They might need it after a triple header, but I just feel like they could have. I think the calendar's been pretty poorly put together this year again. They've said they're on about making it make more sense next year and maybe sort of blocking races a little bit by regions. So maybe we'll get some in the Middle East, then by Europe, and then the Americas and all that sort of thing, rather than bloody Baku to Canada in a week. What's that about? And every year, I do not get it. I do not understand that. We want to be more environmentally friendly, so we're going to go from Baku to Canada in a week. What? No, don't be so stupid. So I don't know how that's going to work. I fully expect it'll be Bahrain and Saudi Arabia at the start of the season. Then we'll probably have Australia on its own, because what do you couple that with? Can't really have it too much later in the year, can you? That's a really kind of optimal time for Australia in a lot of ways. Then we'll probably have Miami, because I don't see how Miami, is it the rainy season that they're trying to avoid, partnering with Canada, and Canada can't be any earlier in the year, so that doesn't work for them. Canada doesn't want to be later in the year. Monaco refused to move. I actually think Canada like their spot as well. Australia want to start the season back. We'll see whether that happens. Abu Dhabi must be at the end, so you already know that you're ending with Qatar and Abu Dhabi. It's just a lot of... I just don't really know how they'll do it. I really don't know how they'll do it. If it were me, which it isn't, but if it were me, I'd probably just start the season in Australia, because I think in the early part of the season, no offence to Albert Park, that's the most awkward one to try and fit in logistically, if that makes sense. So I'd probably put Australia in first, and then go Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and then do Spain, Imola, Monaco, then do Canada and Miami together if that's possible, then into a European season for the summer, the rest of the summer, and then come back with sort of Baku, China if that's on the calendar again, Japan, that kind of thing. It's sort of around there, and then back to the Americas for Brazil and Mexico and COTA and Las Vegas, of course, next year. That's the other thing as well. They want to club them together by region. You can't have 3 US races together. That's going to be a pain. I know it's a big country and there's a big distance between the tracks, but I can't see Liberty Media wanting to have 3 US Grand Prix back to back to back. That's not going to work for them, is it? It's very different to Europe, where they do it, because at least you're going to different countries, and I know that the US is huge and that you're going to different states and all of that, but it's still, you get my point. And then we'll end up with Qatar and Abu Dhabi at the end. That's how it'll go. I don't get it. Warren wants the South African Grand Prix in to pair with Australia. That's a good shout. That's a very good shout, Warren. I like that one. Australia and South Africa back to back at the start. Retro vibes, actually. South Africa towards the start of the season, isn't it? That was first race I ever watched, 1992, and I think that was the first race of the season. So yeah, there you go. Retro vibes for me. Then I suppose you could do Bahrain and Saudi Arabia after that, couldn't you? And yeah, I suppose you've got to be careful with regions as well, because if you have too many races in one region, are the fans all going to turn up to all of them? I suppose is something that'll be a concern. I don't know. I just think they could do better. They could absolutely do better. 2 more then, very quick ones, and then I'm going to wrap it up for today. So I will do them quick fire-ish. If there are no questions, then I will. McLaren F1 races. Leclerc for winning Monaco. He's got to end that jinx. Did you see him crashing Niki Lauda's Ferrari? Oh my days. Poor Charles. Hopefully he will definitely be able to bounce back from this weekend, and hopefully I'd really like him to end his Monaco jinx. I'd love him to win there this year, because I still think, again, obviously we don't know how the race would have gone, but I still think had he been on pole last year, as he should have been had Ferrari bothered to check the car, basically, he possibly could have won that one. Although changing the drive shaft, and they'd probably have to then get a penalty or whatever, but you get what I'm saying. When you microwave a burrito, do you type 130 or 90? That's from Nice Person. Do you see what I have to deal with sometimes? I mean, on my microwave, I think it's 130. I also don't think I've ever microwaved a burrito. There you go. Thank you for that one. If Carlos is ahead in Monaco and Charles is behind, do Ferrari let him through? Says Ankit. Oh. Probably not. Which is weird, me saying that about Ferrari, because that's traditionally what they would do many moons ago. I don't think I know that Carlos Sainz is behind in the championship, but I don't think Ferrari at this stage have necessarily defined the number 1 and number 2 driver. So I would say no. I think if Sainz is leading and Leclerc second, I think Sainz takes that one. Maybe I'm being naive. We shall see. One more then. I'm not answering that, Jonty. I'm not starting that debate at all. And I might end with it, and then you guys can do that while I'm signing off. I can't see anything other than people talking about food now. I've set them off on burritos. So I think we are going to leave it there. Yes, we are. So thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. It was me on my own once again. There will be again for Baku. But, you know, I got a puppy. I've got to go pick him up. So there you go. Not today. Monaco next, though, which is going to be very, very exciting, as I'm sure you can all imagine. Please do drop a like, by the way. We're at 400 likes, so we're 100 away. There's still 998 here, so if 100 of you could drop a like right now, that'd be hugely appreciated for Charles Edward Chi. So please do consider dropping a like and subscribing as well, so you don't miss out on any future content, because I will be back on Thursday. I don't know why that all went in one breath. I will be back on Thursday with the Monaco Grand Prix preview and predictions video, and then, of course, live next Sunday with a guest. Looking at chat at Johnson and winking, and he's not even there. With a guest on Sunday for the race reaction for Monaco. Hopefully a decent Monaco Grand Prix to talk about. I wasn't expecting a good Spanish Grand Prix, so there you go. You know, if we can get a good Spanish Grand Prix, maybe we'll get a good Monaco Grand Prix. We probably ruddy won't, but you never know. You can follow me as well over on social media. All of the links you need for that are in the description down below. And I think that's basically it for today. So, yeah, have a good evening, everyone, wherever you are, or good day if it's a little bit earlier in the day for you. Monday tomorrow, which sucks, but, you know, it'll soon be. It's race week again. Everyone smile, it's race week again. Yes, but as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.